Trans and gender non-conforming people in New York. This is a virtual rally for and by Black and Brown TGNC people. My name is Elisa Crespo. I'm public servant and trans activist, and this morning I have the honor of introducing the speakers for today's rally. Just to put into context for folks, we're here not only to share our demands and our experiences as directly impacted people, but we're also here to address the very real disparities that exist in our communities. And these are disparities that have existed long before COVID-19, but which are now exacerbated as a result. We understand that there is a hearing today in Albany at 10 o'clock. And we believe that if there's any hearing taking place regarding racial disparities, or any disparity for that matter, as a result of COVID-19, then our voices are valid and they must be heard too. The numbers show that COVID-19 is a disease which thrives off of poverty and marginalization. Millions of New Yorkers are without work and no access to stimulus checks or unemployment benefits. They are wondering how they're going to pay their rent when the eviction moratorium expires in the state of New York. That also includes trans and gender non-conforming people. Throughout this crisis, we've seen how enforcement officers have used COVID-19 as an excuse to police Black and brown bodies. And us trans and gender non-conforming people know a little something about what over-policing of our bodies feels like. We know what it feels like to be profiled and stopped and frisked because of who we are and how we look, COVID or no COVID. In addition, our community suffers from unacceptable levels of poverty, unemployment, lack of education, housing, food insecurity, and health disparities. An overwhelming majority of homeless youth in New York City identify as LGBTQ, and they are in grave danger as we speak. With public schools and community centers closed, our young LGBTQ people who are at risk and homeless are left to fend for themselves, increasing their vulnerability to this virus. These issues need to be intentionally addressed head-on by Albany. We hope to make clear today that trans and gender non-conforming people are not expendable in any relief efforts on any level. We are here, and here we will remain. You're about to hear from a host of formidable trans and gender non-conforming advocates and leaders who are out on the front lines in the trenches, picking up the pieces, catching those who fall through the cracks when our government doesn't do enough. These are unsung heroes who are there for their community in good times and bad. We also have some elected officials with us, allies, who are going to be giving some remarks as well, and we thank them for standing in solidarity with us. With that, we would like to give the floor to our first elected official, Senator Jessica Ramos.
Hi, good morning, buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
I hope everyone is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. It's a big day. As Elisa so eloquently shared, it's true. We have a hearing that starts, I guess, in just under an hour at 10 o'clock on racial disparities around the impact of COVID in our communities. And when it comes to the transgender community, especially in my district, the consequences have been quite dire. And I want to begin by talking a little bit about where we were in the pre-pandemic world, because I think we actually were getting to a critical place. And then I want to talk about a little bit what we've been experiencing now and where I believe that we should go together. So before the pandemic, we had already been ramping up our efforts to make sure that the Walking While Trans ban was passed, my colleague Brad Hoylman's bill, as you all may recall. And we were actually gaining it felt like some momentum. And I was actually very pleasantly surprised to see Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul come out in support of repealing the Walking While Trans ban, which is quite critical to have that statewide support and a voice from upstate New York actually understand a world that she's probably not been very privy to. And I say all of that, I wanted to share that because I just want to take a moment to celebrate everything that Decrim New York has done, not me as an ally, not any of the other elected officials. We introduce bills. Our job is to represent you. But I think that the movement that you guys have all created, have built together, is really inspiring for any working person, to see how you can feel empowered by who you are, by what you do, no matter what those things are, because what's important is that we are improving the quality of life of each other. Like I was mentioning, COVID has really changed the way that everybody lives, but particularly for trans people, there are concerns that I have around increased housing discrimination. We know not only, again, as was mentioned earlier, because rent is due June 1st, and we know that if a trans person is undocumented, they do not qualify for any federal or state aid. And if someone, whether they're documented or not, works as a sex worker, well, then there's no W-2 and there's no 1099 exactly to file there. And it's hard, right? You wouldn't be able to qualify for any of those benefits either. And so that lack of cash is a real concern in my community. And I'm sure many of you have seen on my social media the videos and the photos that we've shared of the very long lines at our food program. So I want to make sure that I offer that for those of you who live in Queens on Saturdays, because it's all going to be on Saturdays now. We're going to be distributing fresh food in the morning for those who like to cook, and hot meals for those in the evening, because not everyone has a kitchen in Queens, unfortunately. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping our folks as healthy as possible, and that well certainly includes our transgender community. For those who cannot come, they can call my office and set up drop-offs. We do deliver. And all of my information is online. You can Google my office, and the number is 718-205-3881. And then coming back to more the concern of the economic impact of COVID, it's been a really interesting experience and a very difficult experience at that. To hear the stories of people, so many of my neighbors, including sex workers, who just, have no recourse. And so I did the best thing that I knew how to do. So I've introduced a new bill. It's called the Worker Bailout Fund. And this is a bill that would benefit any New Yorker, whether they have documentation or not, who does not qualify for unemployment or the pandemic unemployment assistance program, PUA, which is the new thing that the federal government came up with for the pandemic. If you don't qualify for any of those salary assistance programs, meaning that you're a sex worker, meaning that you might be undocumented, then you would be able to qualify for this fund that we are creating with money that we would get from imposing a tax on billionaires. Not even millionaires, just 112 people who live in the state of New York who own more than $1 billion in assets. We would be putting a modest tax on their assets. They own a combined wealth of more than $500 billion. If you can possibly imagine what that looks like. I mean, MTV Cribs would go crazy nowadays, I think, if they were to see that what that looks like. And so imposing a small tax won't change their lives, but generating that $3 to $5 billion out of that tax would allow us to change lives by granting every worker $3,300 per month for the duration of the pandemic. And of course, the bill explains, all of the details. I encourage you to read it. But what's important is that we're starting to gain momentum. We had a legislative briefing last week of getting co-sponsors. So this isn't necessarily a pie in the sky piece of legislation. This is something many of my colleagues and I are actively working towards. And my partner in the assembly, so is Assemblywoman Carmen de la Rosa from Washington Heights. Both of us are working very hard to pass this bill. And then ultimately where we aren't yet and where I'd like for us to go together is that, we often talk about sex work as work because not only it's the livelihood of so many people, but because of course we want to protect and empower those who are doing it out of circumstance or by choice. I mean, I've met many of you who like doing it, and that's okay. We just want you to be safe. But for those who want to see a path to a different career, which is why we've been talking about the vacatur bill right since last session, I also want us to start thinking about workforce development programs, because just the nature of work in general is going to change once things reset, if you will. I don't want to say go back to normal, because Lord knows I do not want to go back to normal. But I want us to work on a reset that is inclusive, that is reflective of our beautiful Black and brown communities. And so this is something that I want to work with you guys on, and many others as well. But nevertheless, thank you for having me. I'm so glad that we're able to come together like this, because I missed many of you. So it's nice to see your faces and to see that you're doing well. But also, of course, so that you remember that you have an ally here, and that I'm happy to be helpful in any way that I can. My only parting words are, of course, that, as you all know, we lost the mother of our movement here in Queens, Lorena Borjas, and she selflessly was devoted to her girls, to her angels, who she protected like the mother hen that she was. I certainly felt that love, despite not being, despite being a cisgendered woman, and despite, you know, being a legislator, I suppose. I don't have one of the more popular occupations, I suppose. But nevertheless, I think that her humanity is what we want to embody throughout this movement. And I just want to make sure that we forever remember her in our hearts. So I'm very thankful, and I miss Lorena Borjas, and I miss all of you, and I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate you. I want to acknowledge a couple of other elected officials, some of who are here, some of who are not here. Assemblymember Harvey Epstein, Assemblymember Dan Court, Senator Salazar, Assemblymember Paulin, Assemblymember Tremaine Wright, and somebody could please put themselves on mute, and Senator Hoylman. Next up, we have Assemblymember Catalina Cruz.
Buenos dias. I hope everyone is holding up as best as possible. I want to pick up where Senator Ramos left off. I think we all miss Lorena deeply, and one of the things that those of us who have worked at being your allies can, I think, commit to is continuing to do this, not only in Lorena's name, but in your name, in the fact that we have to come through on the other side, not the same, but so much better. And part of being better is truly understanding how we got here as a community. I think we all have hundreds, if not thousands, of war stories of what we've lived, of what we've seen, of what our community has suffered. But what this hearing will do, and what I'm hoping will continue to do, because it can't just be one hearing, there needs to be more and more conversations. How did we systematically screw this one so bad that so many of our communities, because it isn't just Corona, Jackson Heights, and Elmhurst, which is now known as the epicenter of the epicenter. There are pieces of the Bronx, pieces of Brooklyn that have now the highest rate of deaths. And who are those people dying? People of color. And why are they dying? Because we're too poor, because we're uninsured, because we're undocumented, because we can't afford to live in a way that would allow us to self-isolate. One of the most, how can I put this? I think we're among families, so I can curse a little bit. One of the most fucked up stories I heard was when one of our family members would get sick, and there would be this idea that you should isolate. How do you isolate when you are living in a 2-bedroom house with maybe 3 families because you can't live any other way? Or maybe you're renting a room, or maybe you're homeless. How do you isolate? And so we truly need to make up dents, not in just coming up with fantastic legislation to get us through onto the other side. We need to, as a legislature, not only at the state level, but I think at the city level and at the federal level, however we can get that to happen, to truly address how did we get here so that we never end up with any epicenters again, because our community deserves so much better than simply paying billions of dollars in taxes and then having the federal government turn their back on us. One of the things that we often did was tell undocumented people, pay your taxes, because one day you might get the opportunity to actually become documented, and that's going to help. The number of people I've had to turn away at my food line because all they wanted was, hey, so how do I apply for unemployment insurance? I've been paying it for so long. I've been paying into the system for so long, but I'm undocumented. There is no solution for that. And for our family, because you guys are family, who have chosen or have been forced into the sex industry for a number of reasons, how do we turn our backs on you now and say you can engage in this? So this is one of the many reasons why the bill is so important, why changing the status quo is so important. I do want to give for the folks who live in my community, and even if you don't, because I've had people come as far away as Brooklyn. There are several things that we're doing on the front line to help. And so if you need anything, just give us a call. We don't turn anyone away, even if you live outside of our district lines, because community is community. We're at 718-458-5367, and you can find us Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. If you need help with any sort of social safety net, just a question, you want to vent, whatever you need, give us a call. And we're open Monday through Saturday from 12:30 to 3:30 for food distribution. We give prepackaged lunches, meals every day, plus whatever donations we get. And if you have family members who have children, we're also doing diapers, formula, and other baby products. You can give us a call to sign up. One of the saddest situations we had last week was there was so much need and so many people showed up that the cops actually shut us down. So now we're gonna have to do it by appointment. And this is what we're seeing. The communities of color have been ignored for so long, and now everybody's like, oh, let's figure out how we ended up here. Let's not only figure out, but let's invest. The fact that in my district, we don't have a single government or nonprofit funded permanent food distribution location, meaning a food pantry, a food bank, etc. There isn't one. They're right outside of the lines, and the ones that do exist are run by churches and by other places like that. And so when people are hungry, where do they go? They have nowhere to go. So one of the things that I want to continue to commit to you, I will show up as long as you need me to. I'm hoping that that'll stop one day, because we can pass legislation that'll truly create some sort of equal footing ground. I think that's going to take a while, because as long as some of my colleagues continue to put politics over people, and as long as some of the voters continue to not see us for the human and amazing people that you are, you're going to have to continue to work with us, and we're going to be happy to do it. One of the things that I do plan to highlight when we do have our hearing in about an hour is eliciting questions from the folks who are speaking on the panel. I know that Make the Road's going to be speaking, and I know they have done a lot of work with the TGNC community, but we're going to, I want to ask of the unusual suspects, what are you doing for that segment of our community? What are you as hospitals doing? What are you as unions doing? We want to know what everybody's doing to address those things. And so I know you guys have translators, but before I get off, allow me to say just a few words in Spanish, because I always do this. Primero que todo, muchísimas gracias a las personas, a nuestros hermanos, nuestras hermanas, nuestras hermanas que han estado al frente de esta situación ayudándonos a nosotros. Porque desafortunadamente en comunidades como la mía no existen bancos de comida, no existen lugares donde nuestra comunidad pueda ir y pedir ayuda. Han estado dependiendo de organizaciones comunitarias, de nuestra oficina, de la oficina de la senadora, porque no existe otro tipo de ayuda. mientras exista esta necesidad, nosotros vamos a tener miles y miles de historias de esta guerra, porque esa es una guerra contra la salud, contra nuestra comunidad, contra los pobres, contra las personas de color. Mientras exista esta guerra, vamos a estar luchando con ustedes. Pero desafortunadamente, hasta que el gobierno no se tome el tiempo de entender cómo llegamos aquí y cómo vamos a salir de esto, se va a quedar todo en conversación. Durante la audiencia pública que vamos a tener, como en unos media hora, pienso hacer preguntas para que me respondan los diferentes panelistas qué están haciendo por nuestra comunidad, que no necesariamente son los... I'm trying my bilingual brain. Las organizaciones como que son de TGNC, ¿cuáles son los servicios que están ofreciendo las uniones, los sindicatos, los servicios de salud, etcétera, para que podamos seguir trabajando juntos? Y la última cosa antes de irme, cualquier persona, sin importar dónde vivan, mi oficina está abierta virtualmente para lo que necesiten por teléfono, 718-458-5367, y en persona, de lunes a sábado, de 12:30 a 3:30, para almuerzos y para comida. Nos llega despensa, nos llegan almuerzos, lo que nos llegue lo vamos a dar. And se me olvidó darles la dirección, 4140 de la Junction Boulevard, a 3 cuadras del Tren 7 y la Junction y la Roosevelt. Ahí estamos para lo que necesiten. I forgot to mention our address is 4140 Junction Boulevard. I don't want to take up too much time with the legislation that we are putting forward, because I think that as long as we don't go back to a real legislative season, a real legislative agenda, I can put up a million amazing bills. And if my colleagues in the Assembly and I don't get back to it, in the Senate don't get back to it, what good is it to get us out of this? So my only ask of you is put pressure on your individual legislators for us to start our calendar again. You can go onto my website, you can go onto Facebook. There's all the information about the bills I'm putting forward. But what I am happy to help, I am proud to be your partner. But the help that I need from you is push my colleagues and I to go back into session so that we can pass all these fantastic bills. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are going to pass it over to Harvey Epstein and Assembly Member Harvey Epstein and Senator Brad Hoylman. But I would like to just let you all know that we want to give you all 2 minutes each, because we really want to get to the directly impacted people that are here and who have some words that they would like to share as well. Assembly Member Epstein, 2 minutes, please, sir.
Thank you, and I won't take that long, because I think what my colleagues just said really articulated our views. we need to get back to Albany. We need to pass such important legislation, and we need to talk about these issues of historical discrimination that are happening throughout our society. And Walk a Wild Trans bill is just one of many bills that need to be dealt with. We can't do it remotely without having us back in the legislative session. And we know we need to focus on all the emergency needs. Like my colleagues are doing food distribution, getting PPE out to our communities, dealing with so many homeless New Yorkers. But that doesn't absolve ourselves of our responsibilities of going to Albany and passing really important legislation that'll help tens of thousands of people. I'm with you in this struggle. I will continue to be with you in this struggle. Thank you for including me here. And reach out to my office if you need anything. And it's 212-979-9696. We represent the Lower East Side, East Side, Manhattan. Thank you very much, and all be well and be safe.
And before we get to you, Senator Hoylman, we just want to acknowledge you for the champion you are for being the primary sponsor of the Walking Wild Trans bill. Thank you for that. We appreciate that. And if you'd like to say a few words, please go ahead. Do we have Senator Hoylman on?
Yes, you do. Thank you so much. It's really great to be here. And thanks. It's great to see my colleagues virtually, but hopefully we can see each other in person. I just wanted to say a few words, which is this crisis, as my colleagues have so articulately put it, really has exacerbated and shown a spotlight on the disparities in our society. And there's really no other group that is more vulnerable, more neglected, more disregarded, I would say, by government than transgender folks, and particularly transgender women of color. And as the only LGBTQ member of the Senate, it's my responsibility to keep pushing that issue forward in the Senate. I'm glad that we're having LGBTQ representation on the hearing this morning. That wasn't automatic. It never is for our community. We always have to knock on the door and push our way in. What they say, if you're not at the table, you're going to be on the menu. And so that's partly my responsibility, and I share it with my colleagues. I just want to also say that, we have seen deaths in our community from coronavirus, but we really don't know what the impact is fully, whether it's LGBTQ people who are positive with HIV or AIDS. This is the new positive. It's so interesting. Our community has been through this once before, and I hope we're learning lessons about what it's like to be positive in a society, what it's like to be stigmatized in a society, because our community has been through it, whether it's not even being able to donate blood because of the homophobic and transphobic rules around blood donation that the FDA have set forward, or the fact that there's no data collection for LGBTQ people, particularly transgender people. We don't know our way out of this problem unless we have accurate measurements as to what its impact is on our community. So that's going to be something I'm going to be raising today at our hearing. It's something that I know my colleagues support. We need greater protections for our transgender community, whether it's walking while trans, whether it's data collection, whether it's providing basic human services, like my colleagues are doing so incredibly well in distributing food, whether it's understanding, the fact that we need greater representation from our communities. And then just let me finally say, we've lost folks like Amy Stevens to COVID-19, like Terrence McNally, like many more. But we look to the future, and this is a great learning experience for all of us. I'm very impressed by the fact that we have this shared experience that we are putting forward to our fellow New Yorkers. And today we're going to be talking about that, and I'm very proud and honored to be part of that conversation. Thank you so much. And it's good to see Senator Ramos doing well. She's been through a lot in her district, and we sponsored together an important bill that'll protect New Yorkers from having to return to work if they fear that their workplace is unsafe, unsanitary, or dangerous to themselves or their families due to lack of preparation by employers in connection with COVID-19. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate you. Next, we have TS Candii. Please take it away for us.
Hello, everyone. I'm TS Candii. I would like to thank all of the Assembly members and the senators for joining this rally with the Black and Brown folks, and knowing the importance and the need of this rally to make sure that we're not left out of conversation. And I might be an amateur to New York, but I'm not an amateur to sex work. I might be an amateur to this politic work, but I'm not an amateur to being the word. And I say that to say, like, when I migrated up here to New York, thinking that I'm escaping the jaws of death in the South, I come up here and think that legislation was going to rescue me, and I'm furthermore criminalized and threw under the brush. Well, not only me, our community, our Black community, and our brown community are thrown under the brush. We're always left out. Like Senator, like the prime sponsor mentioned, that when we try to go and give blood, we are discriminated against because of who we are. And I went through that several times, and that was another reason why I had to go to sex work, or I had to, do another survival method, or in a way of to get funds, because we have things that's placed, but that is restricted to individuals that is not considered as the norm. But knowing that it's 2 to 3 minutes and we have a full panel, I'm going to step back and I'm going to let my other sisters who champion New York and champion the sex work and who has, you know, several years of experience and doing all of this work speak. Thanks.
Next up, we've got Cayenne from Glitz, CEO and founder of Glitz, Gays and Lesbians Living in a Transgender Society. The floor is yours, Cayenne, please. Cayenne, you just have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Good morning. This is an ungodly time to be up, but I'm up. So I am here. I was before Walking Wild Trans. I am 50-something years old. I've got 35 years in this business doing this work. COVID has pushed us in a path of danger. COVID has put us in a place where I volunteer at one of the largest food banks in New York City. When that founder of the food bank got COVID, is shut down the whole pantry in Queens. I am in Queens. I'm in a part of Queens that was designated one of the first hot spots by Jamaica Hospital. I lost over 30 friends. Over 15 of them are trans people, people of color, Black people. As Kiara said, don't put me in the people of color bracket. I am Black. I'm positively Black, positively everything. I'm a mixture of a lot of shit. But in New York City, we need people right now to step up. It's not just about Walking Wild Trans, because I've been walking wild trans for over 50-something years in this city. I've been all over helping people. In Glitz, my work is single-handedly front line. I am front line. I'm bailing people out of jail and putting them in Airbnbs. My daughter works for us. My coordinator's upstairs, isolating in this work, doing the work that breaks your heart, having people come out of jail and placing them, and they're scared themselves. Our community is terrified getting out of jail. They're dying in jail, being locked up in jail. This is not right. It's not right, and we're not counted. We're not counted in many ways, especially being Black people, because we're thrown into this umbrella of people of color. That's funny. We can't be Black. We've got to be something else. We can't just be trans. Before we was trans would worry. So the government and clearly white people get to give us these titles, genders based on not us, other people that design what these gender norms are. We need housing, we need equity, we need power, we need Black equity. We need everything that says we're independent. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Cayenne. Victoria Bell, you're next.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me on this. I am a Black woman who's trans, who live in New York, who've been through a lot of shit, who had to fucking sex work. I'm trying not to be erased, and I don't want to break down and cry right now. I was one of those who wanted to donate blood and was denied to donate blood because of who I slept with. So it's been kind of rough. Then to see my sisters going through what they're going through. And yeah, sorry, y'all. I'm just a little upset because they have to be in these nasty ass shelters that deny them of dietary needs that they need. They give them nasty food that they serve them, all kinds of shit. So I'm gonna fall back because I don't want to start cursing. So I'm gonna let somebody else speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Next, we have the founder of the New York Transgender Advocacy Group, Kiara St. James. The floor is yours.
Shay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Victoria. No, these are very emotional times for all of us, you know, and so first of all, Jumbo family. So I put in the chat box, you know, I am not a trans woman of color, I am Black. Erasure is important. We have to address that, how communities are being erased, which means lack of funding going directly to communities most impacted by social drivers, right? I want this to be clear to everyone. When you look at minority business owners, the vast majority of them are cis white women, right? So therefore, because they are business owners, they are put in the category of minority, right? So that's why we have to be intentional in making sure when we talk about the communities who are the most impacted, that we highlight those communities, not erase those communities, but highlight them. And so I wanted to first say that. That's really important. You know, I definitely want to take a minute. We've lost so many folks. One of them, Assemblywoman Lopez talked about Lorena Brojas, who I really love. You know, she was always an inspiration to me, you know, for me doing the work that I do. I stand on her shoulders, you know, a trans Latino woman who came here undocumented and made her way. So I stand on her shoulder and I lift her up. And so, yeah, so that was a hard one for a lot of us, but I know especially for me, you know. So I just really wanted to read, because I did have my speech, not a speech, but you know. So bear with me. In this time of uncertainty, we can either choose to see this as an opportunity to demand a world of new possibilities, or concede our defeat. If there's one thing for certain that we must all know, is that there can no be getting back to normal, for it is that normal that led us all here. When the government failed, we are now experiencing what happens when the government fails us. The very same government that denies the gravity of this pandemic, which has led to the historical shutdown of a global economic system, rooted in keeping the masses in a state of drudgery and perpetual poverty. We must ensure that when sex workers are being denied control over their bodies, your reaction is not that we must save them, but we must protect them by fighting for the decriminalization of sex work, because sex work is work, and no one should be reduced to hiding in the shadows. In this new world we are now in, we must make sure that we can celebrate our resilience with not just TikToks and DJ battles and brush off challenges, but that we are still coming together to mobilize and fight for our collective liberation. We must leave respectability politics behind and fight in the trenches together. Making sure that when Black trans women say, do not erase us in a POC narrative, and then women say, do not erase us, excuse me, making sure that when Black trans women say, do not erase us in a POC narrative, and then use our dead bodies as a funding opportunity, when we say trust Black trans women, that is not just trusting Black trans women, but investing in Black trans women. Not because it's a good soundbite, but because our innate abilities have always allowed us to rise and show and bow to no one, excuse me. So I ask you all to not just take a leap of faith with me, but to assist our family, and not just our local family, New York City, New York State, but our global family. We are a family. This pandemic shows that. We need to make sure what we do here, we're also supporting our communities throughout the globe who are impacted, much worse than we are here in New York City, in the United States. And topping a dictator who has abused his office. Our fight is a just fight. It is a worthy fight. And our liberation will take all of us standing together, shoulder to shoulder, knowing that in silos, we cannot win. But when we rise up as one against injustice, we can move mountains. Ashe. And so I just really want to also say that thank you so much, Central Bat Hoyleman, for being a leader of our community for many years with gender, now Walking While Trans. These are very, people often say, well, why does this impact our community? And why should anyone who is not of our community be concerned? And that's because we are your neighbors, right? We are your brothers, your sisters, your daughters, your sons, and we need to make sure that folks who are not part of this community, that they understand that this is their fight as well. And so thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kiara. Next up, we have TS Denise. Denise is going to speak in Spanish, and then Mateo will translate once she's done. Denise, dale.
Hola, hola, buenos días a todos. Hola, mi nombre es Denise, soy una chica trans latina. Soy líder en el proyecto Trans Inmigrante de Make the Road New York y también participo en diferentes organizaciones comunitarias. Agradezco la invitación a este rally para poder expresar el impacto que tiene el Código Penal 240-37, ambular con el propósito de prostitución en nuestras comunidades transgénero, negras y de color. Este último año se creó la coalición Walking While Trans Ban para luchar por nuestra libertad de caminar y existir en público sin el hostigamiento de la policía. Este Código Penal 240.37 es una ley discriminatoria y transfóbica, porque ya no me siento segura de salir a la calle siendo una mujer trans. Los policías nos ven caminando y nos perfilan como si estuviéramos trabajando en el sexo servicio solamente, por nuestra presentación de género, nuestro modo de vestir, y nos humillan. Nosotras como mujeres trans somos una de las comunidades más vulnerables que menos ayuda recibe por parte de las autoridades y por parte de nuestros gobernantes. Hoy hay una audiencia para hablar sobre las disparidades raciales en cuanto a la respuesta del gobierno, en cuanto a la respuesta del COVID. Y las mujeres trans negras y de color deberían estar presentes. Yo estoy luchando por la campaña Recovery for All para que nuestras comunidades puedan acceder a un cheque de estímulo sin importar nuestro estado migratorio, nuestra industria de empleo, etcétera. También para que cancelen la renta, porque como una mujer trans de color es imposible pagar por una renta en este momento y no quiero que cuando Cuomo abra la economía me vaya a sacar de mi casa. Por último, demando que se liberen a las personas que están en las cárceles y en los centros de detención, que se cambien las leyes que criminalizan a las personas como yo. Así que también se debe eliminar el Código Penal 240.37 para que ninguna de nosotras termine en la cárcel en estos tiempos. Muchísimas gracias y pasen buen día.
Gracias, Denise. Mateo, you there?
¿Escuchan? Sí, okay. So now I'm going to interpret into English. So my name is Denise. I am a trans Latina woman and I'm a leader at the Trans Immigrant Project and Make the Road. And I also participate in different community organizations. I want to thank everyone for the invitation to this rally. I want to express the impact that the Penal Code 24037, loitering with the intent of prostitution, has had in our lives, especially as communities, transgender communities, Black and Brown. During this last year, the coalition Walking While Trans was created to fight for the freedom to be able to exist and to be able to walk in public without the harassment from the police. This Penal Code 24037 is a discriminatory and transphobic law because even as of now, I don't feel safe to walk outside being a transgender woman. The police sees us and profile us just based on our gender presentation, and they continue to humiliate us. As transgender communities of color, we're one of the most vulnerable communities and one that receives the least support, but the most harassment from the police. Today, there is a hearing to talk about the racial disparities in terms of the response that the government has given to COVID. But Black and brown women should be present in that hearing. Today, I am fighting for the campaign Recovery for All so that our communities can receive a stimulus check without, regardless of our immigration status, regardless of the industry of work that we're in. And I'm also fighting to cancel rent, because a trans woman of color is impossible to pay for rent in this moment, and I don't want that once Cuomo reopens the economy, that they're gonna kick me out of my apartment. And lastly, I am demanding that our people are freed from jails and detention centers. We need to make sure that we're changing the laws that take people like me inside those places. And especially, we need to repeal right now the Penal Code 4037, because we need to ensure that none of us end up in a jail in a moment like this. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mateo. I want to acknowledge Assemblywoman Tremaine Wright, who is here with us. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Next, we have Ainsley Aguilera, who follows the same process. She'll speak and Mateo will translate. Ainsley, dale. Ainsley. All right. Next, we have Tabitha Gonzalez. Tabitha, the floor is yours.
Everyone, can everyone hear me? Hi, I'm Tabitha Gonzalez. I'm here just to speak on my experience, because my experience as the blueprint for, the funders' pockets, being Black, formerly incarcerated, former sex worker, my narrative is the same as others, which is why, I can say to Candii, even though you're saying you're new here, your narrative is just as valid as every other Black and brown girl that's present here today. Because it's our narratives that seeks these fundings, that these people can get money off of our narratives. So what would it look like if we took our narratives back and we claimed them as our own, and we formed our own villages and we took care of our own? Because we're sitting here today and not one of us is in that room making decisions that impact our lives. So we're here trying to make a dent. We need to make more than a dent. We need to make a hole and a gateway so that we all can bust through this fucker. All right, there's 5% of us, I'm not even going to give it 5% that can navigate. Yes, I am a Black trans woman who was formerly incarcerated 14 years, former sex worker. And today, just like every other Black and brown struggling family, I have to get up every day and put my life on the line to figure out how to provide for my family. So when the rent comes back and we have to pay rent, I'm going to be so scared as how I'm going to keep a roof over my head, not having everything that I need to continue to keep me stable. But I'm able to hold a little position down with OMH where I can get a little bit of funding so we can have food to eat. But that's not everybody's narrative. Some of my sisters are out there in the corner right now putting their lives at risk just so they can have a roof over their head. I have children, trans children, who are now sex working because they can't get a job or they've been laid off. We are so impacted. And yet when we look at numbers, I read a study that said 30% of the COVID cases are Black Americans. I wonder how many of those were collected that represent my community, because we're even more marginalized. And I bet you that we're not in that number. And it's sad to see that we continue to be erased when it's my narratives that get people here to a point where we can have this. Because everyone wants to hear the sad trans story. Everyone wants to know what's going on with us, but no one wants to help us. So somehow we try to gather these fundings so we can take care of ourselves. And I think that is the solution. I think they need to pour resources into my community so therefore we can take care of ourselves, because we better know what we need than our constituents. And that is so much true. And I thank every senator and every person that's on here who is an ally and help us, because we need your support too. My fight is your fight, and don't you ever forget that. Because as long as I stand on your platform and I tell you my narrative is reliving my trauma so you can push further your agenda. How about adding my agenda to yours? Make sure that we're not left out. It is your responsibility, whoever leaves this panel and go into that room, it is your responsibility to lift your voice on our behalf. So don't pop in and pop out and say you came and did it. Stay and do the work, because that's what y'all tell us to do. Continue to do the work. So I charge you to do the work as well. Continue to stay with us. Continue to lift us up. Continue to be there for us when we're falling down. I know what it is to lose a job. I've lost several last year, and I've had to navigate through that. And they were all because of not having the development that I need to be able to manage. And what do some of us do? We tend to let everything go, and that's what I did. But I have since recovered that, and now I'm back. And I'm not going anywhere until I make sure that none of my other trans sisters have to face another setback again in their life. Because every time we're set back, we're set up for something bigger. We cannot come out of this the same, ladies. We cannot move forward the same. There has to be a change, and we need to stop being in the forefront in the trenches. We need to be at the tables in the forefront, eating what they're eating, discussing what they're discussing, and making policies that affect and uplift us in a positive way. And with that, I'm clear.
Girl, you better speak.
Thank you,
You better
Tabitha,
speak, Tab.
for speaking truth to power.
You better speak, sis. That's right, girl.
We're gonna allow Assemblywoman Tremaine Wright to, we're gonna give her 2 minutes on the floor to share some remarks, and then we'll get back to our speakers. Assemblywoman?
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, I don't even know if I'm on, but I think you hear me. So good morning, everyone. I'm very sorry for the background noise. I'm trying to manage a couple of pieces of technology at the same time, but I'm very glad that I was able to pop in today. I'm going to say thank you to coming together to do this meeting before we're having the disparities hearing. I do want you to know that we are definitively coming up with solutions. This is our opportunity here all day long today. That's exactly what we're dedicating ourselves to, hearing what people want, how it should be done, and what is happening on the ground so that policy moving forward can reflect the actual needs of people. That has been what I've centered my work around this COVID season, and I believe my colleagues are doing the same. I believe Tabitha is 100% right. We do need to hear the stories, we need to carry it with us, and we need to elevate the needs of our entire community. And that means all of us. I'm no ideologue, if any of you know me. I'm somebody that's very pragmatic and believes that we need to represent the whole. And the whole includes all of us. So I'm thanking you for this time this morning, for allowing me to get some positioning and ideas on what is necessary, what's happening on the ground, because as we move forward, this is what informs all of those decisions. I stand with you. Thank you very much. And I'm very pleased that I was able to be here and to be a part of this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Wright. Tatiana Furman, you're next.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm gonna try to keep it simple and quick because I have so much to say and I don't even know where to start. Like I've been sitting here thinking about how I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say, but I've been mushed. I've been like, you know, my mind and my feelings, my soul has been turned into mush for the last couple of weeks. And yeah, I am gonna get emotional. And yeah, I might say a couple of words, but I'm fucking angry. I'm stressed out. You know, they say, don't bring your work. At work, you're used to hearing, don't bring your work home. Unfortunately, now we're all working from home. So it's impossible not to bring your work home. It is stressful. I'm getting calls from participants and clients at 11 o'clock at night that they have nothing to eat because they don't have a mask. Simply because they don't have a mask, and the shelters are not letting them leave out their room because they don't have a mask. And they even walk out to go get food to eat and come back to the room, they're not let back in their room. You know, there's people that are getting kicked out of their place. There's people that needs, oh my God, it's just so much need. It's just so stressful. And we need, you know, to piggyback a little bit on what Jessica Ramos said, we do need things in place that'll help us with job trainings and education and whatnot, because coming from a former sex worker, speaking from a former sex worker point of view, I do know what it is to want a different life and to want to be a better person for yourself, for your marriage, for your husband, or for your family, whoever, and to try to make that change, and how hard it is that people makes it for you to make that change. I've been in predicaments where I don't get hired, or my interview is going perfectly fine. I think I got the job, but the minute that I have to explain why there's an M on my ID and blah, 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 and all this crap, everything just changed. Next thing you know, I don't get a phone call, I don't get the job. Or if I do get the job, you're being micromanaged because they don't trust you. Or they're always piggybacking on anything and just making things impossible for you to just work and live a normal life. And it gets me angry. Unfortunately, I do want things to go back to normal, because if my community was going through A, B, and C, and having to go through X, Y, and Z to survive and eat and put something in their fucking stomach, I can only imagine what the world is gonna look like for us moving forward from here on in with the new change. So I do want things to go back to normal, because unfortunately, that way we had at least a little bit of help. You know, COVID-19 has made life for us just 10 times worse. You know, I'm gonna step back. That's all I'm gonna say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. Liam Winslet, the mic is hot and it's yours.
Hola a todos, todas, todex. Mi nombre es Liam Winslet. Yo soy la directora ejecutiva interina ahora del colectivo intercultural Transgrediendo. Estoy muy molesta, estoy dolida por la terrible pérdida de mi compañera, madre trans, mentora y líder trans, Lorena Borjas. Y a la vez estoy muy disgustada con la situación que estamos viviendo como población trans en una ciudad como Nueva York, donde históricamente se nos sigue invisibilizando una vez más, donde históricamente se sigue visibilizando la desigualdad, la pobreza, la precariedad que muchas de nosotras estamos viviendo. En estos tiempos modernos, donde se habla de derechos, pero donde se nos está dejando pero muy atrás como población. Y cuando digo se nos está dejando muy atrás, es que se nos sigue invisibilizando, se nos sigue olvidando. En la actualidad, la comunidad trans que hace trabajo sexual es la población más afectada en toda esta situación del COVID-19. Y es una situación que afecta a la comunidad trans. Es una situación de la que nadie está hablando y que nadie está visibilizando. La comunidad trans que hace trabajo sexual, las poblaciones trans negras, las poblaciones latinas, las poblaciones latinex, siguen siendo perjudicadas terriblemente por este nefasto sistema que aún sigue criminalizando nuestras vidas. Las trabajadoras sexuales sobre todo. No existen apoyos económicos, no existen apoyos que garanticen o que velen por los derechos de las poblaciones trans que hacen trabajo sexual. Es una situación catastrófica. Necesitamos que Nueva York garantice los derechos de nuestras comunidades. En la actualidad, nosotras como organización de base comunitaria estamos apoyando a 210 compañeras que hacen trabajo sexual en la ciudad de Nueva York y que han sido olvidadas por el sistema, que no tienen para pagar sus rentas, donde los niveles de estrés, los niveles de preocupación, e incluso el hablar de suicidio de nuestras compañeras es una cosa que oímos a diario, y es una cosa que nos preocupa y es una cosa que el Estado no está asumiendo. Nueva York no está asumiendo su responsabilidad y Nueva York tiene una deuda histórica con nuestra comunidad. Es hora de que Nueva York tome acciones sobre esto. Somos la población más golpeada en estos momentos ante esta terrible pandemia que no solamente nos aísla, sino que también nos mantiene en una presión constante, y queremos que se escuchen nuestras voces. En el condado de Queens, la realidad es terrible, terrible. La comunidad está muy preocupada. ¿Cómo puede ser posible que aún el gobernador de Nueva York no tome medidas y no tome acciones para que no se cobre renta a la población, a las comunidades que están en situación de pobreza y precariedad, que no tienen y que están preocupadas? ¿Qué va a pasar después del COVID? Va a haber mucha comunidad que está en situación de calle y se va a multiplicar más la situación. Gracias.
I'm not sure if Mateo is still here to interpret. If not, Mateo? Okay, I think Mateo had to run.
I have some of it. I can hop in. I'm John Pena.
Go ahead, John.
No problem. I don't have the entire things, but I was struck by a lot of it. So
I'll interpret real quick if you want.
Go ahead, Mateo.
Yeah, so sorry, after this I have to hop off, but I took the notes. So Hi, my name is Liam Winslet. I'm currently the executive director for the Colectivo Intercultural Transgender. I am upset, I am in pain for the loss of my comrade, my mother, and community leader, Lorena Borjas. And I am disgusted by the situation in our community in New York State, especially for our trans community, where not only continuously being invisibilized, but also erased, and they're erasing our experience and what we're going through. In these current times, we talk about human rights and we talk about the rights for our people, but our trans community is being left behind. We're being invisibilized, we're being forgotten, especially the trans sex workers communities that have been left behind during this period of COVID. Nobody's talking about us during this COVID time, especially for Black communities, for Latinx communities that continue to be impacted by the horrendous system that continues to criminalize our lives. There's no current support, economic support that can cover trans communities. This is a complete catastrophe. As someone who's a part of the community and who does community organizing from the base, we're supporting around 210 community members and comrades that have been forgotten by the system, where the levels of stress and preoccupation is extremely high. We're constantly hearing our sisters talking about suicide, and this is something that we hear on a daily basis. New York New York is responsible for this, and New York has historically had a debt with our communities. We're one of the communities that has been hit the most during this time, and we're constantly having the pressures. In the Queens County, the reality is much horrible. The community is very worried. People don't know what's going to happen next, and it is completely unacceptable that the government hasn't taken any decision to cancel rent. Now, because we don't know what's going to happen after COVID. Many folks right now are homeless. Many folks are struggling to find a stable place. And so we don't know what's going to happen later on after COVID is over and people cannot pay for rent. Thank you, everyone.
Gracias, Mateo. Last but not least, Sasha Washington.
Happy birthday, Mateo.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mateo.
Happy birthday, Mateo.
Happy birthday, Mateo. Feliz cumpleaños. Happy birthday, Mateo.
Happy birthday.
You were supposed to sing it, but it's okay.
Okay. Yes. Happy birthday, Mateo. We love you.
I guess I could sing it after Sasha. You guys get to hear my beautiful voice.
Yes, honey.
Again.
Ms. Washington.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. Bear with me. I am Sasha Washington, a long-time advocacy for the trans community. I just wanted to be aware, first and foremost, thank you, Candii, for inviting all of us together. And thank you for your yes and your sacrifice. You are family, and you will always be part of us in this fight. And this fight will always continue to be a fight, even when we are called to be home with the Lord. I just wanted to make it aware that we also had to put in the atmosphere that mental health is powerful. And this can take a lot of toll on our mental health for ourselves. So I wanted to make sure that we also practice self-care dealing with our mental health, especially because as an advocacy and an activist that stands up, and I put my spirit and my soul in the front line to sacrifice for my sisters and brothers of color, it takes a lot of toll out of our mental health, and it could be overwhelmed and drainful. So let's make sure that we deal and take care of our mental health, as well as addressing and fighting for what's right for us at the table. Once again, thank you, Candii, and thank you, everyone, for your yes at this time.
Thank you, Sasha. That completes our list of speakers for today's rally. In closing, we want to remind everyone that you still have time to fill out the census. The census is extremely important. I could speak to you for a long time about the census, but in a nutshell, the census determines how much money we get as a state. And everyone is allowed to fill out the census regardless of immigration status. If you live in the United States, you can fill out the census. So please go to my2020census.gov and fill out the census if you have not already. That is particularly important for our community. We also want to talk to people or remind people that there is a presidential primary. There's also a primary for state elected officials in the Assembly and in the Senate, and also a congressional primary happening on June 23rd of 2020. The governor has allowed people to sign up for absentee ballots on the Board of Elections website so that we don't have to go out to the polls and be around people because of the circumstances, but the polls will still be open on election day. So there's different options. You can vote by mail, or you can do early voting, or you can vote on election day. We have to continue to use our voice and speak up and be represented. I want to thank all the speakers who took the time out of your schedules to come today and speak. I want to thank Candii for organizing this rally. And I hope that when some of these senators go into this hearing, that they will have us on their mind. Thank you. Love and light to all of you. Please be safe. And Saye is going to share an email with a link for resources with mutual aids and other things that are available right now for COVID-19. And with that, that completes our rally. Thank you so much, everybody. Candii, you want to say a final word, or you're good?
I'm good. I just want to say thank you for all the assembly members for joining. Thank you for all the speakers for speaking. Please, speakers, hit me privately but hit me up. But thank you all so much. We love you all. Senators and assembly members, thank you for championing with us. Please go on now. And since we on your mind, speak about us first. Let's go ahead and put us out there on the table since we're here. But thank you all, everyone, for joining. All the speakers, everybody.
Yes.
Some hugs, some kisses. And I want to thank all of the
Yes, everybody.
the participants for coming and hearing us.
To listeners,
speak.
that's
Like,
right.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We're all a family, like they said.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. See you later.
Speakers, reach out to me. Speakers, please reach out to me. Thank you.
I will. Bye, Candii. I want to see Saya.
Candii, te amo.
I love you too.
Bye, Brianna.
Thank you.
And thank you, Tabitha. It's over.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye, Jasmine.
Bye, mommy. Is Sayed's gonna speak?
No, I'm not speaking.
You're not saying nothing?
No.
All right,
I thought you was gonna share something.
Share something, yeah.
Now I'm gonna email the resources to folks.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Saya, for inviting me, and thank you for everyone. You know, the response is incredible, and we need to continue this work together, collectively. And I'm so proud to be a part of this work. So thank you, and everybody remain safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye, bye, babe.
Taya?
Yes?
I'm running for New York City mayor, and this has been such an amazing meeting, and I want to continue this work. So are there any organizations or people I should be connected with you would recommend?
Yeah, you could send me an email and then I could connect you to the speakers.
Okay, what's your email? Do I have it already?
saye@byp100.org.
Okay, let me just write that down. Can you repeat that? Thank you.
SAYE at BYP 100.
BYP 100.
thenumbers.org.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Have a great day,
You too.
everybody.
Bye.